Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. We'll just go through the answers of the homework. So the nature of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah Azza wa Jal sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by mercy to all worlds, including human and jinn, not only to mankind. Inna وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, plurals. The word of animals, the word of plants, the word of jinn, the word of human. The second one, the spirit of all mankind were created before Allah created the universe, created their soul. So the spirits were created before even the place. The third one, the spirit of Prophet Muhammad was created before the spirit of Adam. And that was taken from ayah, وجهت وجهي الذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا مسلما وأنا أول المسلمين. Allah said to Prophet Muhammad to say, I'm the first of the believer. And the Prophet was asked, what was first created? He said, Nuru Nabiyyika ya Jabir, the light of your prophets, O Jabir. So that's confirm it. Number 4, Prophet Muhammad have no brothers or sisters. And number 5, and the similarity between Muhammad and Jesus sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that we are both created from earth material. Somebody wrote that both have no fathers. No, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a father, Abdullah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Allah to make him light. Now this could be metaphoric, right? Enlighten the way of the people, his own way, enlightening the mind of people, the behavior of people. Or could be really light, because he was known to have no shadow. So if you shine on a bulb, which is lit bulb, it wouldn't produce shadow. With no shadow to the light. And number 7, Allah singled out Prophet Muhammad by winning with the fear installed in the heart of his enemy at a month distance, a walking distance. So when he went to Tabuk, by the fact he left Medina, the Roman ran away. 300,000, they didn't want to face the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Number 8, the new discovery shows that a human heart has brain type cells. And number 9, it's more likely that our consciousness is in the cells in the heart, because it's mentioned in the Quran and it's mentioned in the Hadith. إنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. It's not the eyes get blinded, but it's the hearts in the chests. Allah said, he have no insight. He can't see the facts. He can't see reality. He can't see the truth. Some people really have this problem. You just explain to them again and again. They can't find out what you mean. And it will grow with you. Sometimes when the child probably have no insight to, he might run towards a running car, or might go to an agent food. So he wouldn't have insight to what's around and what's wrong, what he should avoid. Question number 10. The Prophet ﷺ unique in a way that he has no shadow. Number 2, he can see from behind him, like seeing in the front. And number 3, he can stay without food and drink for months in sequence, in a row. And number 4, can physically defeat, and he did, the strongest man around. He defeated Rakan 3 times. And he was the top wrestler in the Arabian Peninsula. And number 5, he never sleep. He said, تنام عيني ولا ينام قلبي. My eye closed, but my heart is awake. Which also, again, probably because the insight is there. You're aware. He's aware of the surrounding, what's happening. Why he doesn't need to sleep? We said last time, you need to sleep to rest the brain. The brain has to decode itself. You go through a lot of experience, the brain has to sieve it and throw away the rubbish and keep the good ones. And if it is massive experience, like war and massive car accident or massive natural disaster, you develop something called post-traumatic stress disorder. One of the signs you can't sleep because the memory is so big for the brain to classify. And we have method as a psychiatrist to take you out of this post-traumatic stress disorder. But the Prophet ﷺ never had any stress from any, because nothing will shake him. He wouldn't be worried about anything. Some of us will be worried about your food, your drink, your school, your trip, your transport. He doesn't. When he was in the cave of Thawr and there are kafirin outside to kill him, he went to sleep. He slept on the lap of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And what woke him up, because Abu Bakr was bitten by a snake, and from the pain, the tears came out of his eyes, dropped on the face of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he woke up. What's wrong? And he said, I've been bitten by a snake. So the Prophet took some of his saliva and cured it for him. Allah cured it for him, obviously. So he never slept. In Jannah we don't sleep. There's no sleep in Jannah. So all these who sell beds and mattresses, they will run out of business. They wouldn't have. Right, it shows a different profession. And has no mercy to the shaitan in his heart, as was removed when he was toddler. He was given permission by Allah to marry as many women as he wants. 10, 20, 30. Allah said you can marry anyone who gave herself as a wife to you and you like her. You can marry your cousins, you can marry. And he was rewarded as if he is in Jannah. When you go to Jannah, inshallah, many of you will be given 60, 70 wives. And some said to her husband, you shouldn't have any woman in Jannah because you wouldn't find any more beautiful woman than me. So why you need another one? That's a joke. And his heart cleaned by the angels twice when he was toddler and before he went to Isra and Mi'raj. Don't really know why and what happened, but it's an incident taking place and the Prophet ﷺ mentioned it. He doesn't explain everything. Why? Prophet Muhammad didn't explain ﷺ everything he mentioned or everything took place. Why? He mentioned Isra to the Kafirin from the journey he took from Mecca to Jerusalem and back. But he didn't mention Mi'raj. He didn't mention Mi'raj to Kafirin. Why is that? Isra mentioned by word in the Quran, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi laylan min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawla, but he didn't mention Mi'raj. He mentioned Mi'raj by narration in Surah Al-Najm. وَالنَّجْمِ إِذَا هَوَى مَا ضَلَّ صَاحِبُكُمْ وَمَا غَوَى وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ عَلَّمَهُ شَدِيدُ الْقُوَىٰ. And then I didn't mention the journey from planet Earth to above the seven heavens. Why is that? Because the brain of the... Yeah, you want to say? He knew, he took him from Jerusalem to above the seven heavens and back. But he didn't mention it to kuffar. He mentioned it to the Muslims. Because Muslims take it because they believe in Allah and Allah can't do anything and everything, so we believe that. But the kuffar, even if it's in the Quran, we don't have difficulty now explaining that yes, you can go from Mecca to Jerusalem and back in a couple of hours. It's possible for man to do it now. What about Allah? But I didn't mention Mi'raj because no one can understand how can you go from Jerusalem to above the seven heavens and back in one night. While the Milky Way is 50,000, the Milky Way width is 1 billion light year. The universe 50,000 billion light years. So how you can make it in a couple of hours? The human brain cannot perceive that. So Allah didn't put the Quran in an embarrassing situation, because Allah knows that human will never know how Allah can do it. Like Allah said, "Ata amrullah, fala tastajilu." The day of judgment has happened for Allah, but for us, He said, "Don't hurry it up." So how is it that the day of judgment happened already, and the day of judgment Allah said, "Don't hurry it up"? And Mi'raj the same. When the Mi'raj took place, the Prophet ﷺ went to Jannah and saw people enjoying it. And he looked into heaven and saw people punished in it. And Day of Judgment hasn't happened yet. So Allah is telling us messages about science which with grasp Allah has grasp of and He created, but for us we can never understand. When the mechanical engineering, when the quantum physics came to exist, even Einstein wouldn't believe it. How can two objects communicate with each other, and one here and one at the end of the universe? Theoretically, this is what the quantum physics is, like quantum mechanics and things. So many scientists, they didn't accept. But if you ask a top person in mechanical quantum physics to explain it to you, he can't. But they said possibility is there. They explain it. They said, like, if you have a pair of shoes, the left in a box here, the left one in a box here, the left one, and the right one in a box at the end of the universe. You will know what's the one in the end of the universe is when you open the box here. When you open the box, this is the left, so that one is the right. So you had the knowledge instantly. And the last one is he was taken to above the seven heavens to speak to Allah Azza wa Jalla. While Allah spoke to Adam in Jannah, he was created in Jannah, already in Jannah, and he spoke to Musa alayhi salam in the Wadi al-Muqaddasi Tuwa in Palestine. But he took Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to above seven heavens to talk to him about an important way for people to link with Allah Azza wa Jalla is to pray 5 times a day. This is why Salah is the most important action you could do. Today we're going to talk about Ghusil in Islam. Ghusl is the things which exist in Islam, but to non-Muslim is not actually in existence, which is in Islam, alhamdulillah, keep us pure and clean. Probably we end having 5-6 showers a week. So the Ghusl, which in your book, it starts from 149 to 160 to 1.60, and I'm going to teach you as much as I can, but you need to read the rest at home. And this is the beauty of the book. It will give you all the nitty-gritty about the things, and all the differences exist. So here, the Ghusl, he called it here in English the complete ablution. I better keep knowing it as Ghusl, because Ghusl only for Muslims when they have lost their Ghusl, or they become Junub, Janaba, that's another term in Islam, doesn't exist somewhere else. And you become Junub with few things here. He mentioned 5. The first one, he divided it into A, B, C, D, and E. So the first one, when there's no sexual activity, but things happen to the man or the woman by first something comes out of the front passage, which called mani or semen, white stuff, with or without sexual desires. So you might have it without sexual desires, or through a wet dream. Whether a man or a woman, the man will see the white stuff, they call it semen, or they ejaculate, and the woman could be water also when she see a wet dream. If you see a dream which is not wet, you don't pass any semen, you don't have to have ghusl. But if you do, you have to have ghusl. If you see the water. And a woman called Salim, she asked the Prophet ﷺ, if a woman had a wet dream, does she have to have ghusl? He said yes, if she experienced water, the water passed from the front passage. If you don't pass anything, you see a dream, sexual dream, you don't pass anything, you don't have to have ghusl. You just have wudu. But if you see some stuff coming out, then you have to have ghusl. Obviously, clean the stuff. If you wake up and you found that you passed some white stuff or water for the women, but you didn't remember the dream, you have to have ghusl. Because there is evidence that you have seen the dream, but you forgot the dream. Most of us see dreams and forget it, and see another dream. Some go into a loop of dreams. So if you had a dream but nothing came out, no ghusl. If you had a dream and something came out, you have to have ghusl. If you had a dream and don't remember the dream, but you saw that you passed something, you have to have ghusl. Wetting your bed is you don't need ghusl for wetting your bed. I hope you don't wet your bed. That's only for children who are less than 2 years old. But wetting your bed with white stuff, you have to have ghusl, and so the sisters, the females. Whether you allow the stuff to come out or not, you have to have ghusl. And the same if you are awake and you see that they will pass stuff. The only exemption if there is white stuff passed is being ill. Some illness might cause this to happen, extreme fear might cause this to happen. But if it's an illness, you don't have to have ghusl. And people do have illnesses, depends on. If you haven't noticed until you prayed Fajr, you have to do ghusl and pray Fajr again. Because that means that you prayed Fajr without ghusl, even if you made wudu. So if you make salah and then remember that you didn't have wudu, salah is nil and void. You have to make wudu and pray the salah again. And here, if you make wudu and do salah, and then you remember, oh, I must have seen a dream or something I wasn't aware of, but you saw the stuff in your underwear, then you have to have ghusl and pray again the salah. So that's number one. Something came out without any sexual contact with the other sex. The second one is when you get married and you sleep with your wife. Obviously, if somebody had haram relationship, forbidden relationship, adultery, fornication, you have to have ghusl. But assuming that you all well behaved and good Muslims, and you only sleep with the other partner, with the other opposite sex when you get married, then when your private part meets her private part, you have to have ghusl. And the difference is, some say if there is penetration, you have to have ghusl, and some say is not. If there is only touch. But the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا الْتَقَى الْخِتَانَانِ وَجِبَ الْغُسْلِ. The top of your private part to the top of her private part, you have to have ghusl. Whether you had any real intimate relation or not. So Aisha, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari came to her and he said to her, I want to ask you something, but I feel embarrassed to ask you this. She said, ask, don't feel embarrassed, because I'm your mother. Because the wives of the prophets are our mothers. And he asked her, he said, if a man, tried to sleep with his wife, but he didn't do the full job, does he have to have ghusl? She said, if the two private parts met each other, you have to have ghusl. So that's, and the beauty of the book, this is why I chose the book, he will tell you all the differences. So here, the last one, he said, if there is a touch between the two front passages, man and woman. And the third one he put in the book is when a lady finishes her period or finish her, she had a baby and stop bleeding. Stop bleeding, sometime the period could be 1 day and maximum 10 days. If 10 days pass and she's still bleeding, she starts praying. She have ghusl and start praying. But she make wudu for every prayer. And that could be an illness. You need to talk to a doctor. You don't have to bring the book every week, but if you bring it, don't leave me and be with the book. But the book will take you with a lot of details. You might miss what I'm saying. So, anybody I didn't give him a book here? You all have the book? You didn't have a book. You take one from the bank. That's a gift from Sunday school. And you had a book, Rian, yeah? That's only for ladies. When they finish a period, the period could be, as I said, 1 day, no more bleeding, had to have to ghusl and start again. And there's more details on the type of blood and the color and things, which is, I'm not going to explain. It will be in the book in later stage with these details. And the period could be minimum 1 day, maximum 10 days. And giving birth could be minimum 1 day, maximum 40 days. So if she see blood, streak of blood, she carries on not praying and not fasting until she finishes seeing blood. Then she have ghusl and start praying. And fourth one, when you die. After you die, you have to have ghusl. How would you have ghusl after you die? Yeah, somebody else will wash your body, and they shouldn't see you private when they wash your body. Just lift the things and pour some water. And men wash men and women wash women. If you are in the middle of nowhere or the city is no other woman to wash your wife, what will you do? You wash your wife. If it is not your wife and you need to wash her, what do? It's not your wife, you're not supposed to see her body. Or if somebody died with corona, when COVID hits and people dying, Muslim dying, what were they doing? No washing, forbidden, banned. What were they doing? Do you know? The beauty of Islam that tayammum replaces wudu. So if you are in a place when there is extreme cold and you don't have hot water and to have ghusl, what do? Tayammum. So tayammum could replace the wudu and ghusl. Wudu and ghusl. My son was in sixth form and he was calling, I think Marwan was in sixth form, and I can't pray. Why? I need ghusl. See that brick? See that stone? Touch it. Make tayammum. Face, right arm, left arm. Come and pray. You do tayammum. There's no bathroom in the shower in your sixth form, and you claim to need ghusl. I think most of them were lying. They don't want to pray. But I have an answer for you. You can do tayammum. Come and pray. There's no excuse. Or you want not to miss Jumu'ah. You're really in a hurry and you need ghusl. Sometimes the wudu is not available. What about ghusl? There's no shower in the mosque. So you do tayammum. So you do tayammum for a woman who is dead, who is not your wife. You do tayammum. You do tayammum for somebody who's have contagious disease, can give you the germs they died of, so you die tomorrow. So they no, we don't do ghusl, we don't know ghusl. We just wipe over the face, the right arm, the left arm. And some mazahib will say will teach you next, that in only the hand. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَامْسَحُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ مِنْهُ. And yet in Arabic could be this one only to the wrist, and yet could be the whole arm. But in the wudu, because Allah Azza wa Jalla wants to tell us where to stop, He said, فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ. He said إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ, not to the shoulder, to the elbow. So He mentioned it. In Tayammum He didn't mention it. He said, وَامْسَحُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ مِنْهُ. So some scholars said you can do the tayammum up to here, and some say you need to do tayammum up to the elbow. But that gives you relaxation, because if you are doing tayammum to a lady, her family might not want you to see her arm. Or if you are doing it to somebody who have corona or have typhoid or something, he died because of infectious disease, then it's easy, the face and 2 hands, and that's it. And you don't have to have, you can have gloves yourself, because you're not doing it for yourself. You put gloves, touch a stone, touch his face, touch a stone, touch his right hand and left hand. Ghusl done. Islam came obviously from Allah Azza wa Jal, the Creator. He knows all these circumstances which you will come across to the end of time. Not only for the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they didn't, at this time, they didn't have a lot of knowledge about contagious diseases. They were very clear about the plague, the ta'un. Because if ta'un hit a city, he said, don't enter it. And if you are in that city, don't run away from it. Because you carry the plague into another city, to another city. So it will be banned from leaving the city to stop the plague. It's like what they tried to do when the corona hit. Remember, they banned all the flights coming from China, and there's no flights coming. And then appeared in Italy, no flights from Italy. Then there were students in Italy doing skiing trip. Oh, you can't come back home. People became ridiculously terrified of the corona. And the last one is when somebody become a Muslim. He need to do ghusl, pray to rukat to Allah Azza wa Jal, and his iman will be completed. The Prophet ﷺ, when somebody became Muslim like this, Abi Thumama al-Hanafi, he was taken as a hostage in the war. And then he was, the Prophet ﷺ said to him, what do you want us to do? He said, you can kill me if you want. You can take a ransom and free me, or you can free me for nothing. So the Sahaba wanted him to take a ransom from him and free him. But then the Prophet ﷺ came back to him and said, what have you decided? He said, I want to become a Muslim. He said, okay. He said, Shahada, go and have shower, have ghusl, and pray to Ruka'. And when he did have ghusl and prayed to Ruka', the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Islam is perfected now. It's good. As a junub, if you lose your ghusl, you can't do salah. You cannot pray Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, or any sunnah, or any nafil. You cannot pray, full stop. Allah Azza wa Jalla wants you to be pure. Probably we will never know why Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to have ghusl after sexual intercourse. We don't know. Or if that's having a wetted dream. Why passing, ejaculating make you lose your ghusl? We don't know. It is, inshallah, when you grow older and you get married and you find that you feel you really need shower. I don't know, you feel that's missing. So you quickly try to have shower, not to stay without ghusl. Also, you are allowed to sleep overnight without ghusl, but you have to have ghusl before Fajr. But we will never know. For Salah, and you cannot do tawaf around Kaaba, because tawaf around Kaaba is Salah. It's similar to Salah. The only difference is, what's the difference between Salah and tawaf? What's permitted in tawaf and not permitted in Salah? Give me a present. What's that permitted? Come on. One of you should go. Yeah, Raouf, not him. His homework came failed. Now, what's the difference between Salah? Tawaf is moving around Kaaba anti-clockwise. But there's something you're allowed to do in Salah. In Tawaf, you're not allowed to do in Salah. The Prophet ﷺ said, Tawaf is similar to Salah, but you are permitted to talk in Tawaf. You can talk to brother or sister. Oh, have you seen that? Oh, look at that guy. like I was making tawaf with my wife, and somebody tried to steal the bears from somebody's bag, and his hand went nearly just touched the bag. I said, I'm watching you. I said, oh, Allah khalika bih, Allah khalika bih. And he walked out. He was Arab. And he walked out. He just disappeared. He went out. He was worried that I'll tell the police about him. But he was about to steal the things. And so if it was in Salah, you will lose the Salah. It's like the three people praying, and the cat came. He left his meat on the floor. A cat came, tried to eat the meat. And he said to the cat, "Piss," means go away. And the other guy said to him, "You can't speak while praying." And the third one said, "Alhamdulillah, I didn't speak." So the three of them lost their prayer. While in Hajj, you can talk. And the third one is touching down the Quran. Now here there is differences in the opinions, because Shafi, Hanafi, Maliki and Hanbali said you can't touch the Quran or carry it when you are junub, if you lost your Ghusil, except two of the top scholars, Dawood and Ibn Hazm. Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi. Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi, he created something called Mazhab al-Zahiri. Mazhab al-Zahiri, it's like Shafi, Hanafi, Maliki, Hanbali, but al-Zahiri, he takes the superficial meaning of the ayah or hadith. He doesn't dive in depth to find out what really the Prophet meant, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he will take it superficially. And he looked into the ayah, Allah said, Ya Ahl al-Kitabi ta'alu ila kalimatin sawa'un baynana wa baynakum. This ayah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought it in a letter, not him, but us Sahaba to write it, and he sent it to Herakl in Damascus, Christian, the Muqawqas in Egypt, also Christian, and Kisra and Sharwan, who was atheist. And they took it, which is part of the Quran, because part of the Quran, like the whole Quran, and they read it. So the fact that this Christian took the Quran, carried it and read it, gave him the view that's permissible to carry the Quran. Ibn Hazm and Dawood. But the Shafi, Hanafi, Maliki and Hanbali said no, you can't carry the Quran. Some took that and said if the Quran is protected, you can. Some say if the Quran you carry because you want to learn how to read the Quran, you're not doing ibadah, worshipping. Now the Quran, you read the Quran as a worship, act of worship. And the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever read a letter from the Quran, he will have one hasana multiplied to 10. And I don't say alif, lam, mim, harf, but alif, harf, lam, harf, mim, harf. So if you say alif, lam, mim, you get 30 rewards. So reading the Quran as a worship, you get reward. But reading the Quran, you come to the school here and they're teaching you how to read Fatiha or how to read Al Imran. They're learning. So they took from this dispute about carrying the Quran, you can if you are in the intention of learning the Quran. And so the Qira'at al Quran, to read the Quran forbidden. You can't read the Quran or a verse from it. But also there were dispute about if it's the Quran, but it is not reading the Quran. You're making dua. You're asking Allah, it happened to be a verse in the Quran. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Allah give us good things in this life. It's in the Quran, but you can do it as dua. They say it's allowed. If you are reading something to ask Allah to help you against shaitan, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's in the Quran, but you want to eat, say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. You're allowed. Why? You're not reading the Quran as ibadah, worship. You're reading the Quran as starting the mission from Allah to eat. And again, Al-Bukhari and Tabarani and Dawood or Ibn Hazm allowed reading the Quran to the lady who is having period. Some say for the intention of learning, and some say no, it's not for the intention of reading, of learning. And they all quote this ayah, which Herakl and Isna Kisra Anu Sarwar, the atheist, and Al-Muqawqas in Egypt, Christian, read the Quran, they are junub. They didn't have ghusl. So you see where they get the permission from. But in our real life, tell them that you Muslims don't read the Quran or carry it if they are junub because of sexual intercourse. But they do if it is junaba from period or having a baby. Because the lady will be 40 days without reading the Quran, so they allowed it to happen. Dhikrullah, any ayah which contains Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, you can mention the names of Allah. Subhanallah, Azim, Subhana Rabbi Al-A'la, it's allowed. It's dhikr, a type of dhikr, more than reading the Quran. And number 5, to stay in the masjid. You cannot stay in the masjid if you don't have tahur. If you have janaba, if you need ghusl, you will need to not stay in the mosque. You're only allowed to go through the mosque because it's shortcut. If you go to Damascus, the Umayyad mosque, it's a big mosque, and to go from Suq al-Hamadiyya to the other side of the mosque, if you want to go around the mosque, it's quite a long journey. So you're allowed to cross the mosque, the courtyard of the mosque. And the Prophet ﷺ wanted something from the mosque. He said to his wife, get it from the mosque. She said, I'm junub. I have period. He said, no, don't worry, go and get it. So he allowed her. ناوليني الخمرة قالت إني حائض قال إن حيضتك ليست في يدك. Your period, not in your hand. So you're not bleeding from your hand. Go and get it and come back. So he allowed her to go and get it, al-khumra, and come back and give it to the Prophet ﷺ. And being junub doesn't make you impure. People can touch you, hug you, kiss your cheek, or you can kiss your wife. And the Prophet ﷺ used to put his head on the chest of his wife Maymuna while she had a period. And that's allowed. So you're not allowed 5 things. You're not allowed to pray. You're not allowed to move around Kaaba. You're not allowed to touch the Quran or carry it, with some exemption. And you're not allowed to read the Quran, with some exemption. And you're not allowed to stay in the mosque, with some exemption, just to get something. You left your bag last week, you have to get it and go out. When you cross the mosque, because the mosque is too big to cross it from end to end. Now the ghusl, which is sunnah, which here comes like you're having a bath. The ghusl, which is sunnah, difference between the bath and the ghusl will come later when how do you do ghusl. That ghusl you have to wash all the body, including your front and back passage. So when you are having shower, you have to make sure you clean your back passage, because the water might not reach it. So here's the difference. So you have encouraged to have a ghusl on Friday, on Friday, and usually people, Friday starts from Thursday sunset, so you can have ghusl the night before, or in the morning if you can, you have enough time. Or you have to ghusl sunnah, which is Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. And you have the ghusl when you wash a dead person. But that also is different views. Some say you don't need ghusl, some say you better have ghusl. If you carry the dead person, you have wudu. If you wash the body of a dead person, you have ghusl. When it is contagious disease, you can see the point. But it is not, some died of heart attack, there's no germs to get to you. And before you put ihram, when you go to Hajj or Umrah, and before you enter Mecca, and before you go to Arafat. And then Arkan al-Ghusl, you can read it and save me a lesson, but I could explain it to you in another time, inshallah. So you have from Yeah, 149 to 160. 1.49 to 160. The end of Ghusil. And then Tayammum will be after that. Ghusil for women, 159. And issue around Ghusil, 1.60. Okay, Jazakumullah. Stamp number 70 will be out. Unless you have the old version, when it is 60, 72. So either 70 or 72. There will be a homework. Try to do it immediately because your knowledge is still fresh in your brain. Don't leave it to the last day. Inshallah. If you open on 70.
Thank you.